Every story appears ordinary till you see the core side of it.
And what you're looking for is the story behind the news.
We bring it to you from Lagos, the commercial capital of Nigeria.
Giving you all sides and political stories round the clock.
Every detail from the start line to the final whistle.
CoreTV News, expanding your view.
Hello and thank you so much for joining us on CoreTV Primetime News today, broadcasting live from our Lagos studio. I am Abosede Omawi, and here are top stories tonight. Many thanks for joining us tonight. Now to the news in full. The federal government said it is set to begin rehabilitation of the Apapa-Oshodi Expressway and other federal roads in Lagos. The Federal Controller of Works, Lagos, Godwin A.K., disclosed this to newsmen today while inspecting some highways marked for construction. He, however, says the Federal Ministry of Works is waiting for an approval of the 2016 budget to begin the repairs. The controller expresses sadness over the failed portions and apologizes to road users, stating that all failed sections will receive priority attention. AK also discloses that government is also set to begin the rehabilitation of all federal roads across the country. In the meantime, President Muhammadu Buhari has ordered the release of 10,000 tons of grains from the National Strategic Grains Reserves for national distribution to counter food price increases and the intolerably high exploitation of common people by the trader class. He has also directed the Minister of Agriculture and Rural Development, Audu Ogbe, to ensure that all the able-bodied men and women in internally displaced persons camps be assisted to return to farming immediately. This comes as a reaction to calls for government measures to ease hardship associated with food inflation. The presidency firmly rejects the insinuations that poverty and lack are products of the change mantra, stressing that this should be dismissed as an erroneous and misplaced opposition criticism. The president has called on Nigerians as a people renowned for their inner strength and ability to triumph to carefully await the positive change they voted for. Meanwhile, Vice President Yemi Osinbajo has stressed that serving and former public office holders in the country will now be required to account for their wealth in what appears to be a fresh strategy to fight corruption. The Vice President made this known at a town hall meeting convened by the United Action for Change in Lagos. Osinbajo says the era is gone when people would become millionaires and billionaires overnight without anyone asking questions. In Osinbajo's words, anybody who can't explain his wealth must be brought to account. Everyone who has served in public office must account for what they own, stressing that this is a change he desires Nigerians to support. The VP also adds that the policies of the government are not tainted by any hidden agenda, and that at the end of their tenure, President Muhammadu Buhari and himself would be willing to present their bank account details and assets to convince Nigerians they did not abuse their positions to get richer. And now the United States of America has announced its readiness to support Nigeria in the ongoing war against Boko Haram insurgency. Touring IDP camps in Yola, the Adamawa state capital, on a routine assessment, the U.S. Permanent Representative to the United Nations, Samantha Power, says her country is ready to assist Nigeria with everything required to continue in the fight against insurgency. Power and some members of President Obama's cabinet are also on the tour, as reported by correspondent Odwag Godwin. In other news, Nigerian troops from 81 Battalion and some elements of 251 Task Force Battalion 25 Brigade have ambushed suspected Boko Haram terrorists escaping from Sambisa Forest to Fulawani village. In a statement, the acting director, Army Public Relations, Colonel Sani Usman, discloses that the ambushed terrorists were trying to link up with other terrorists or members of their families to relocate to other places. He further discloses that the troops sprung a surprise ambush on the group of escaping terrorists from Sambisa Forest, crossing towards Alagano mounted on motorcycles and bicycles, killing 5 of them and recovering a number of items. The Army also says, based on its assessment, the recovered items were for sale in other locations where remnants of the terrorists were hiding, but in dire need of logistics. Now, 3 staffers of the Osun Civil Service kidnapped last Friday have regained their freedom. The state head of service, Olayinka Uweye, in a statement says the Permanent Secretary and Ministry of Finance, Bimpe Ogunlumade, Tajuddin Badejoko, Director of State Audit, and the driver to the Auditor General of the state, Oladapo Ajani Arogundade, were freed by the abductors on Sunday evening. He says arrangements are being made to convey them to Osogbo immediately by security agents with a view to reuniting them with their families and relations. And in Lagos, the state government has released a white paper on the reports of the Tribunal of Inquiry into causes of civil disturbances at the Lekki Free Trade Zone, reiterating its commitment to ensuring free access for investors, not just in the area, but also in other parts of the state. The state government has equally requested the Inspector General of Police, Solomon Arase, through the State Police Commissioner, Fatai Owosheni, to take over investigation into the gruesome killing of the Managing Director of Lekki Worldwide Limited, Tajuddin Disu, as a fallout of the unrest. Leaders of the Okunraye community, where Disu was murdered on October the 12th, 2015, had claimed that the late Disu was killed by a stray bullet from mobile policemen attached to the area, while the police in turn issued a statement denying the allegation. The Lagos State Commissioner for Information and Strategy, Steve Ayorinde, notes that these moves are in line with the recommendations of the tribunal. The state government also takes note of the recommendation of members of the tribunal on proper stock taking to identify communities that have not been resettled or given possession of land excised to them, and thereafter directs the Ministry of Commerce, Industry and Cooperatives, in conjunction with Lands Bureau and the State Valuation Office, to identify such communities and complete the resettlement process. Now, the National Human Rights Commission says it is determined to put a stop to the incessant cases of pre-trial detention of suspects beyond the 48 hours limit allowed by law. In a statement today, NHRC's Chief Press Officer, Fatima Mohammed, says the Executive Secretary, Bem Angwe, says this will no longer be tolerated given its affronts to human dignity and fundamental human rights. She discloses that Angwe made this vow in Abuja to commemorate this year's African Day of Pretrial Detention, which is usually on April the 25th. Angwe calls on security agencies in the nation to strictly observe the Constitution and guidelines on the conditions of arrest, police custody, and pretrial detention in Africa, as well as all the relevant international protocols, treaties, and conventions in handling criminal suspects. Now, fresh communal clashes in Taraba State has claimed 15 lives, as well as destroyed property and livestock worth millions of naira. Gunmen suspected to be of the Shomo tribe attacked a Wurkum settlement at Didango village in Karim Lamido local government area of the state. Odwa Gordon reports that the attackers invaded the village in their hundreds at midnight with dangerous weapons, razed down houses in the entire village. Now, Lagos Park Traders Association in Mando, Kaduna, northwest Nigeria, has made a passionate appeal to Governor Nasir El-Rufai of Kaduna State to quickly intervene in a legal tussle between the traders in Yakowa Shopping Complex, Mando, and an indigenous company, Rogo Trading Company, over the ownership of the complex. The traders, who claim to be tenants of Kaduna North local government area, believe the intervention of the governor would greatly help to douse the tension brewing up at the complex over the continuous harassment of the Rogo Trading Company to evict them from their shops forcefully following a court judgment in their favor. The report is presented from our studios. Here are traders holding various placards chanting, "We will not relocate. We have been paying our rent. Stop harassing us. We will not agree." The secretary of the Traders Association alleges that the Rogo Trading Company, which shares the plot in front of the complex, had taken Kaduna North local government to court and secured a court judgment that the whole area, including the complex, is its property, and therefore all tenants in the building, totaling 112, should vacate within 7 days. The traders believe it is unlawful for the Rogo Company to take them to court, along with Kaduna North local government, since they are only tenants who entered into agreement with the local government authority and have been paying their shop rent accordingly.
We are united, in peace we stand. So we are calling the Honorable Governor to intervene in this case. Let the Lagos Park Traders Association knows their stance in this case, because we are not a party to that very case. If there is any judgment, let them take the judgment to the Kaduna North local government.
The traders allege that since the judgment by Kaduna High Court in 2014 in favor of the Rogo Company, they have suffered series of harassment and intimidation by some unknown youths who claim to be working for Rogo Trading Company. The traders asked the governor to wade into the matter and ensure that Rogo Company ceases forthwith their joining into any court case between the company and Kaduna North local government.
Please, we don't want any crisis in Lagos Park, because we don't know what may happen tomorrow. They came here on Friday, they enter people's shop, they removed their property, claiming that the shops was given to them by the court. So we try the best we can to calm our members. If not, only God knows what will happen here.
While responding on the matter, the Interim Management Committee Chairman of Kaduna North local government acknowledges the matter and laments why the previous administration failed to appear when the case was taken to court and suspected a conspiracy.
When we took over in July 2016, this case was already on ground. And the Rogo Trading Company had already won this case against the local government. The government of the day then made sure they did not turn up in court, and the verdict was given against the local government.
Abdullahi discloses that the court has, ever since the case was ruled in favor of Rogo Company, been deducting money from the local government account as part of monies awarded to the company. The chairman says his administration will do the needful to ensure that law and order is maintained, while assuring the traders of his readiness in resolving the issue amicably. And in Plateau State, stakeholders have gathered in Jos, the state capital, to discuss ways of ensuring lasting peace in the state. Those that met in a town hall meeting in Jos include state assembly members of volatile areas, members of civil society organizations, security personnel, among others. Our Plateau State correspondent who monitored the event reports that far-reaching decisions were taken. Here's the details.
Some of those that spoke at the meeting professed solutions to the crisis that has bedeviled the state since 2001. It was discovered during the meeting that although it was forecast that communal clashes were brewing in Plateau State, no one envisaged the duration and extent of the crisis.
We have a history of political divides, but they have been latent until the political stakes became higher. Then there are also economic factors involved. Certain people wanting to seize land, to occupy land for their own benefit.
For youths, which for me is holds the future, we must get it right. at the point of the youths. Because if we miss it, the tendency is that the carnage, the destruction will be perpetuated.
A lecturer at the Peace and Conflict Resolution Bureau, University of Jos, Angela Deoye, attributes the lingering crisis to the idleness of youth, while blaming selfish elites have taken advantage of the rampant poverty in the state.
These youths are idle. They fall easy prey, for perpetrators like the elites now of violence to use this particular, group of people to perpetrate violence.
The whole of the community, especially when you look at what actually the attacks, the villages that the problems are mostly affected, you look at them as towards the boundary area.
Though a modicum of peace has returned to the troubled state, people are always conscious of those around them, while foreign investors are yet to return to the state due to its poor security international image.
You're watching CoreTV Primetime News. Still ahead, the People's Democratic Party sweeps victory in the just concluded Ondo local government elections, while the All Progressives Congress swept victory in Yobe State. Details after this break.
VAT, Value Added Tax, is a tax paid on all goods and services and remitted by the seller of the goods or provider of the service to government. 5% VAT is added to the total cost of goods and services in Nigeria, and when remitted to government is used for funding development. The VAT you pay will be used by government to develop our transport infrastructure like roads and railway lines, to continually improve our educational sector by building more schools and upgrading existing ones, to provide adequate security and a better quality of life for us all. Pay your VAT. Make your contributions to the development of Nigeria. It pays to pay your tax. This message is from the Federal Inland Revenue Service.
So glad to have you back, and if you're just joining us, you're watching CoreTV Primetime News. Let's take another look at our top stories. For more on our top stories, all the news and information, kindly visit our social media platforms. Facebook.com/CoreTV News. You may follow on our Twitter handle for more at CoreTV News NG. And you may subscribe to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/CoreTV, leave a space news. Let's talk election matters now. The Ondo State Independent Electoral Commission, ODEC, this afternoon announced the results of the local government elections held yesterday to fill the chairmanship seats in the 18 local government areas and councillorship seats in the 203 wards. The results were announced at a press briefing at the ODEC Secretariat in Akure, the Ondo State capital, by the chairman of the state electoral body, Olugbenga Ige. In the breakdown, the People's Democratic Party won all the 18 local government chairmanship seats and 202 councillorship seats, while the ACPN won the last of the 203 councillorship seats in Obaile Ward 1. The Ondo State local government election, which was characterized by low turnout of voters, had 14 political parties participating, with the PDP being the dominant party, while the All Progressives Congress boycotted the election. And in Yobe State, the All Progressives Congress has won the Urutamuwa Gujba Gulani Federal Constituency by-election in the state. The returning officer of the election, Sandy Alao in Damaturu, declared the APC candidate Abu Bakar Kalau as the winner. In Kokowa scored 23,745 votes to be declared winner against Nasiru Hassan of the People's Democratic Party, who polled 6,990 votes to emerge second. Adamu Dina of the Advanced Congress for Democracy, ACD, scored 163 votes, while Jibrin Ladan of the National Conscience Party scored 139 votes. The election was conducted on Saturday to replace Khadija Bukar, who was appointed minister in the federal cabinet. Yobe Commissioner of Police, Zana Ibrahim, says there was no violence recorded in any of the 4 participating local government areas. Well, congratulations to the winners there. And in other news, according to the famous Oscar Wilde, education is an admirable thing, but it is well to remember from time to time that nothing that is worth learning can be taught. In line with this, educationists say the importance of learning cannot be overemphasized. They say education is as important as learning and urge the government to take the sector seriously, as children are the heritage of tomorrow. Correspondent Victoria Solomon tells us more in this report presented from our studios.
Learning is the instinctive ability of the human mind to observe, process, and adjust to information or experience. Science makes it clear that a person never stops learning, inasmuch as new information are discovered and processed daily. Meanwhile, the bulk of a person's ingrained knowledge comes from observation and consideration. Education, however, is a structured and specific method of passing on knowledge, and it doesn't work the same way for everyone. To educate is to require a teacher from whom the knowledge is assumed to be correct. To put succinctly, a person can educate others and be educated in turn. In line with this thought pattern, this educationist believes that it is important to know that education and learning might be similar, but needs to be taken seriously.
Is that I think that across the continent, we need to revise how we look at education and learning. I think they go hand in hand, and we need to start looking at how we can take learning or education outside of the classroom into the real world.
She further explains why people don't take education seriously.
We are having too many technocrats or technical people who are limited to only theory, because that's what I learned in the classroom, but we don't connect what happens in the classroom to the real world.
Another is confident of Nigerian education and the way it passes its knowledge to the young.
If we want to say it the way it is, Nigerian education, I think, gives priority to education, and it's okay. We are very good in Nigeria. We grew up in Nigeria and we can contest with the whole world.
She also urges Nigerians to go back to the rudiments of learning and spelling to get the best education.
We have to make sure that we go back to the beginning when we used to spell letters, not just words. Our students, generally, they just spell words, which it shouldn't be. They should spell it letters by letters and pronounce and sound it.
Education is power, and it can't be done without learning. It is hoped that Nigerians would appreciate education more, and children will make it priority in all their endeavors.
And on the implication of insecurity on education, Berom Community and Riyam local government area of Plateau State has bemoaned the impact of insecurity on the socio-economic activities of the people. Members of the community decry the inability of their students to register for some examinations in the area due to incessant attacks. Our Plateau State correspondent brings us details in this report presented from our studio.
According to the leader of Show community, insecurity in the communities is preventing the growth of economic activities, especially the proper functioning of schools in the area.
Because of the insecurity, they have been deprived of their economic activities. That has led to non-registration of GS3 presently.
DACWAC calls on the Commissioner for Education, Joseph Mariga, to provide teachers for their schools because the previous ones have stopped attending classes as a result of the poor security situation in the area. In his response, the Commissioner for Education said the government is not ignorant of the happenings in the area, adding that it has taken steps to ensure the reopening of schools in the communities.
We have to thank the governor because he has just directed me to submit a memo for employment. I am now waiting for approval.
Several places in Plateau State have closed down their schools due to insecurity and lack of teachers.
And so from Plateau State, the ad hoc committee from the State House of Assembly set up to look into the activities of miners in the state has sounded a word of caution to miners, urging them to adhere strictly to environmental laws and community development. The warning follows an on-the-spot assessment of mining activities in Wase local government area by members of the committee. Our correspondent brings us details. According to the chairman of the ad hoc committee, the miners are not keeping to environmental laws. He warns that the State Assembly could take drastic actions against them, adding that all the allegations laid up against the miners were confirmed due to the environmental degradation and poor social developmental activities exposed by the tour.
Some of the things that the committee expected to see, we have seen them. The environmental degradation, the commitments of this particular company to his own side.
At the end of the tour, Gaga sums up the committee's findings, calling on the miners to adhere to environmental laws and also to engage the community in its social responsibilities. For his part, the Commissioner for Solid Minerals says the major need of the people is education.
The effect of the movement of those mining products in and out the area have affected the transportation system absolutely. Having come to the towns, also the companies around, we have noticed that the miners themselves does not engage the community the way we are expecting them to.
90% of them do not go to school. So the only thing and the first thing I want this community to enjoy is the school, in fact, the education.
The large deposits of solid minerals in Plateau State have exposed it to several environmental degradations to the detriment of its residents. Talking food production now, the Minister of Agriculture and Rural Development, Audu Ogbe, says the federal government will engage youths in the country for massive food production. Ogbe, represented by the Minister of State for Agriculture, Heineken Lokobiri, disclosed this at a two-day youth program workshop. He says the food production will be in partnership with African Development Bank and International Institute for Tropical Agriculture. The minister says the program will cut across the 36 states and federal capital territory in order to give all youth the opportunity to participate. Ogbe says the government has resolved to ensure that the youth become major drivers of the agriculture sector. In other reports, Lagos State Governor Akinwunmi Ambode says the massive fall in oil prices in the international market is a blessing in disguise for Nigeria. Governor Ambode, speaking at a summit in the United Kingdom, says if honestly handled, the fall in oil prices has actually offered the country the opportunity to deliver real growth. He maintains that though the fall has sharply reduced Nigeria's growth rate, export earnings, foreign direct investment, and government revenues, the nation stands a lot to benefit positively from the downturn. The governor says although Nigeria faces some tough times and tough choices with the new reality, he is hopeful that the low oil prices would serve as a tipping point for positive change. And now the Central Bank of Nigeria says a total of 4.9 billion naira has been provided as loans to rice farmers under its Anchor Borrower Program. The CBN Governor Godwin Emefiele stated this while speaking during a tour of the farmlands in Kebbi State, cultivated under the intervention program of the Apex Bank. The Anchor Borrower Program is designed to create economic linkages between farmers and processors, not only to ensure increased agricultural output of rice and wheat, but also to close the gap between production and consumption. Emefiele discloses that under the program, The CBN has set aside 40 billion naira out of the 220 billion naira Micro, Small and Medium Enterprises Development Fund to be given to farmers at single-digit interest rate of 9% per annum. Now, former Deputy Governor of Lagos State, Rafiu Jafojo, has passed on at the age of 80. Jafojo died on Saturday after a brief illness and was buried today. The late Jafojo served as deputy to Lateef Jakande on the return of the country to civil rule between 1979 and 1983. Calling at the deceased home, his former boss, Jakande, describes him as loyal deputy and prays for the repose of his soul. Meanwhile, Lagos State Governor Akinwunmi Ambode has expressed sadness over the passage of the former Deputy Governor of the state, Rafiu Jafojo. Jafojo, who was Deputy Governor during the administration of former Governor Lateef Jakande during the Second Republic, died on Saturday in his Lagos residence at the age of 80. In a condolence message signed by his Chief Press Secretary, Habib Aruna, Governor Ambode notes that Jafojo's death is a great loss to the state, adding that his contribution to the development of the state will not be forgotten in a hurry. The governor notes that the late Jafojo worked closely with Obafemi Awolowo and learned the ropes and the ideology of putting the people first. He concludes that Jafojo has paid his dues and Lagosians will always remember him. While still ahead on CoreTV Primetime News, citizens of Equatorial Guinea go to the polls to elect their new president. Details of these and other reports from outside Nigeria after this break. Do stay with us.
With over 7 billion of world population and still counting, the world needs to hear you now than ever. Whatever your ministry or vision is, Gospel Africa will help get you there faster than you think possible. For inquiries and participation, contact 009 503 3859 or 0812-076-0011 or visit www.gospelafricang.com. Gospel Africa, your #1 media solutions for the church today. Gospel Africa, showing on this station at this time.
You know, Angela, that's a very difficult question.
It is difficult to respond to that question.
Angela, that's a great question.
Great question, Angela. Angela, that is a very great question. That's a great question, Angela.
Okay, that's a great question.
Yeah, very good question. That's a good question.
That's a good question.
That's an interesting question.
This is an interesting question you pose.
60 Minutes with Angela. Again, answers to every question you always wanted to ask.
Glad to have you back on CoreTV Primetime News. Now to report from beyond the shores. Citizens of Equatorial Guinea are heading to the polls in a vote expected to hand the incumbent president, Africa's longest-serving leader, another 7-year term in office. President Obiang Mbasogo faces 6 mostly unknown opponents, with most of the opposition boycotting the poll. The country's opposition leaders and international civil society groups have already dismissed Sunday's vote as not being credible. Obiang, who has ruled Equatorial Guinea for nearly 37 years after overthrowing his uncle in a coup, is accused of presiding over one of the world's most corrupt and repressive government. Critics accuse the 73-year-old of failing to distribute the country's oil wealth to the population of about 700,000. Now, polls have closed in Serbia after parliamentary election that is seen as a de facto referendum on Prime Minister Alexander Vucic's bid to lead the nation towards European Union membership. Opinion polls suggest voters were set to grant Vucic's pro-EU Serbian Progressive Party 4 more years in power, but it would probably have to contend with a resurgent ultra-nationalist opposition demanding closer ties with Russia. parliamentary elections were originally due to be held by March 2018. However, Vučić called for a snap election in January, claiming Serbia needs 4 more years of stability so that it is ready to join the European Union. The ultra-nationalist may complicate Serbia's EU membership talks by resisting concessions, such as ending Serbia's constitutional claim to sovereignty over Kosovo. And German Chancellor Angela Merkel has advocated the creation of safe zones to shelter refugees inside Syria. Speaking at a university in the city of Gaziantep, Angela Merkel calls for zones where the ceasefire is particularly enforced and where a significant level of security can be guaranteed. She points out that keeping people displaced from their homes on the Syrian side of the border would help the 28-nation bloc and Turkey, which hosts 2.7 million Syrian refugees, stem the flow of refugees to European shores. The UN has, however, warned against a safe zone plan unless there is a way to guarantee the refugees' safety in the war-torn state. A ceasefire between the Syrian government and rebel groups in place since February end has faltered, forcing tens of thousands of people to flee the fighting. And North Korean leader Kim Jong-un has hailed a submarine-launched ballistic missile test, describing it as an eye-opening success. Kim declares that Pyongyang has the ability to strike Seoul and the U.S. whenever it pleases. The U.S., joined by Britain, has described Saturday's apparent test as a violation of UN Security Council resolutions and calls on the North to refrain from further moves that could destabilize the region. South Korea's defense ministry says the launch appeared to have failed as the missile, fired from a submarine in the Sea of Japan, flew just 30 kilometers. However, the North state-run KCNA news agency insists that the test, which it says was personally monitored by Kim, confirms the reliability of the Korean-style underwater launching system. And now Israel has released 12-year-old Al-Wawi, who was arrested in February on charges of attempted manslaughter. The 12-year-old, after spending 2.5 months in a prison, making her the youngest Palestinian female detainee, reunited to her family amid tears. She was arrested on February the 9th near the illegal settlement of Karmeh Zor, just north of her hometown of Halul. The family had appealed her detention, citing international legal norms and Israeli law, which prohibits the imprisonment of children younger than 14 for the country's citizens. And now the United Nations brokered Yemen peace talks have continued on the 4th day in Kuwait, but with government and Houthi rebel delegations far from reaching an agreement to end the conflict. The delegations resumed the negotiations today, but an hour into the talks, it was obvious to the UN Special Envoy Ismail Aoud Sheikh Ahmed that the talks were going nowhere with a lack of progress. The envoy had to suspend the session. The Houthis later disclosed that they're in consultation with their leaders in Yemen about whether to return to the talks or pack up and leave. And in sports reports at this time.
Power style, and that's what he delivered.
Nigeria's league management company, LMC, is to partner with the Spanish league La Liga for the development of the nation's football. A delegation of the La Liga board is due to arrive in Nigeria on Monday for a bilateral meeting with their host, the LMC. The La Liga delegation will be led by the president, Javier Tebas, international advisor, Melchior Sola, head of La Liga South Africa, Antonio Baradas, and the head of La Liga Middle East office, Fernando Sanz, who is also in charge of African affairs. The two bodies are expected to sign a memorandum of understanding for a partnership that will cover exchange of knowledge, trainings for Nigeria professional football league club coaches and administrators. They will also collaborate in the area of marketing, commercial, promotional activities, and youth development. The formal unveiling of the partnership between the two bodies will hold on Tuesday. And Kelechi Iheanacho has expressed gratitude to fans and supporters who spurred him to victory, especially in the 4-0 knockout of Stoke by Manchester City last Saturday. The Nigerian international and Manchester City forward has received praises from outgoing manager Manuel Pellegrini, who predicts a bright future for the youngster. In Pellegrini's words, Kelechi Iheanacho is an important young player with a lot of future. He scores lots of goals, but he's not just a penalty box player. I'm sure that his role in this team will be very important. Iheanacho scored a brace and forced a penalty to be declared man of the show-stopping clash between Manchester City and Stoke. Iheanacho, who joined Man City early 2014, has so far scored 11 goals for the side, comprising 5 Premier League goals and 4 FA Cup goals and 2 League Cup goals. And in tennis, Rafael Nadal has defeated Japan's Kei Nishikori 6-4, 7-5 in the final of the Barcelona Open to equal Guillermo Villa's record of 49 clay court titles. The 29-year-old Spaniard, who won the Monte Carlo Masters last week, won his opening 10 matches of the European clay court season. Nishikori won this event in 2014 and 2015, but was left to rue a series of missed breakpoint opportunities. Villas, the Argentine, won 49 clay court titles in the 1970s and early 1980s. The world number 5 has a chance to beat that mark in May, as he's set to play an event in Madrid and Rome before he goes for a 10th French Open title at Roland Garros. Meanwhile, 9 of Rafael Nadal's 14 Grand Slam titles have come at the French Open. Well, that's it on sport and on CoreTV Primetime News. But before we go, let's take a quick recap of our top stories. Many thanks to you for being a part of CoreTV Primetime News today. On behalf of the production crew, do have a splendid interest. I am Ambode.